Hi, it's Dr. Noel Williams, April 6, 2021, take two. Kim was making me laugh too much, so I had to stop. So big shout out to Richard Dodge, a guy who's watched me for almost a year. Thank you for all your comments, but most importantly, and your support. Thanks for sending that awesome article from the NIH and NIADH, or hold on, that's Natural Antidiuretic Hormone, sorry. National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, NIAID. So anyway, that's Fauci, or Foxy's, as I call him now, because of Kim, Fauxi, where he's the division head. But anyway, Richard sent this great article as a journal article, which I reviewed, which I posted in a written form. I tried to boost it, but since if I try to boost anything now, they get reviewed before they can be boosted. And I only boost things that are really, I think, important to me. Yeah, it got rejected because it was a journal article from the NIH and Dr. Fauci's division, which showed that we have long-term immunity from vaccines and infections of COVID-19. And this immunity is across the Brazilian and the South African and essentially all the variants. It's a fabulous article. It's posted. Please feel free to look at it, send it to your friends. And it was a written post late last night because that's when I saw it. And thank you, Richard, for sending that. It is transcendent because it shows we have immunity. And if we have immunity, this thing's over. It's over. As long as people get their vaccines. Get your vaccines. And we're going to talk a lot about vaccines tonight.
Just in case it's taken down, I'm going to put it on our website.
And in case it gets taken down, because it could, it will be on our website, Optimal Health Associates. Before I go into that, a big shout out to Hope Salazar. She's a medical assistant who's been awesome for 2 years at our practice, and she is retiring on Friday to go to PA school. We'll have several of our staff leave. For those of you who are in our practice, you wonder what happens to our staff. Well, they accelerate in life. Some of them go to graduate school, some of them get RNs, some of them get bigger progress and become assistant managers and stuff. So we're going to have a turnover this summer because we have all these wonderful women who are going to be going to graduate school, or postgraduate school, I should say. So sad to see Hope go because she's been amazing, like everyone on our staff is, but she's progressing and there'll be several more. So thank you, Hope. And for all of you that appreciate our staff, just remember to say thanks when you're in the office and tell them how much you appreciate them, because we really focus on their excellence and them being excellent to you. And I want to say thank you to all of them again, and my PAs and nurse practitioners who, between me, or I should say them and I, we took care of almost 500 COVID patients directly and had no deaths, and it's very exciting that we managed to achieve that. And thank you for everyone's trust who gave us the opportunity to care for them during COVID. We'll still be caring for people for COVID, obviously, because there will be cases, but I think things are getting better. So let's talk about vaccines. So several global questions. Question one is, if you got the infection, why would you get the vaccine? That is an absolutely fantastic question. And so it's hard to answer. I mean, 90% of the time, so I'm going to give you a Marine study I've talked about before. They looked at a group of Marines who'd gotten it and they followed them and they did what they called ribonucleoside amplification testing, where they could see the messenger RNA go up from the virus if they got reinfected. And out of this very large group of Marine recruits, 10% of the group that had been infected got reinfected by that. In that group, 90% were asymptomatic. The other 10% were minimal to mild, barely mild symptoms. None of them had to leave basic training. They all did fine, and that's what the data shows. So the first thing is, if you get the vaccine, it runs about 95% of the time you're going to be immune, and 5% of the time you're going to get an infection. But that infection, again, looks like 90% of the time it's going to be asymptomatic, and if that leaves about 0.5%, and then we're talking about the messenger RNA in the Moderna and the Pfizer, and then so 95% are essentially immune, 90% of the remaining 5% will be asymptomatic if they get infected. So that leaves a 0.5% who could get minimally symptomatic, and less than that for mild symptoms. And so it works out to probably about 1 in 10,000 people. And these statistics get crazy. And then for moderate infections, probably 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 100,000, and it's 0 for serious infection and death. So the question is, if you get an infection, do you need to get vaccinated? So if you get vaccinated, you're going to have a very brisk immune response with one vaccine. Your antibody titers are going to skyrocket and be higher than anyone who gets 2 vaccines by just getting 1. So if you're going to get a vaccine, if possible, since we have this data, I would always encourage just the Johnson & Johnson. But if you have the opportunity to get the Pfizer or the Moderna and you want to be extra safe, go ahead and get it. Now, the question is, if you get the infection and you fall within the 10% that could get reinfected, and we don't know who you are, does getting the vaccine lower that number? And you would expect it to be probably 50%, because if 10% of the group gets documented infection in people who got infected, and it looks like in the Pfizer Moderna data, it's 5% get infected, that's half. So you think probably about half of them, if they got the vaccine, might mount a better immune response to give them longer term immunity. So it's reasonable to go ahead and get the vaccine. But, again, since they're essentially asymptomatic 99.9% of the time, or minimally symptomatic, is it really necessary? Well, the CDC says yes, the NIH says yes, the FDA says yes. So that's the scientific principles involved, but that's different than what people are recommending. So again, it's a personal choice, and you're going to have to make your own decision on that. If it's a child, I think it's absolutely at this point a no-brainer to say no, because they're going to have a great immune response. There's minimal disease events in children and young adults, so why would you put them through a vaccine that would have a very small risk of harm? If you're an older person, again, it gets convoluted. So I know I'm not really answering it directly, but it's a personal choice. But the powers that be say, oh, everyone should get a vaccine even if they've been infected. That doesn't make sense to me, but you need to make an individual decision based on your health status and other factors in your life. And then the final thing is, you can always go to an immunologist. You can go to Amy Darter's office in Edmond. If you're in Oklahoma City, you can call her. She can do immune testing to see if you're immune. She's awesome at this. They have this great machine. She actually texted me today and said, hey, do I want to see how immune I am from my antibodies? And I was like, sure, because they can do that. So that's Amy Darter's office in Edmond, Oklahoma. She can actually see if you're immune. So if you're wondering about it, call our office, do the test. It's a blood test. It's simple. It's non-fasting. They can figure out if you're actually immune or have immunity, and T-cell and B-cell immunity. So that's a good thought. So that's really the summary tonight is, this vaccine thing, get it. If you're a high-risk person, get it. If you haven't gotten COVID, get it. If you've gotten it, think really hard about getting the Johnson & Johnson vaccine as your primary. If you have a lot of high-risk factors, don't hesitate to get one of the other ones, because you want to be protected. And that's really where I'm coming from on that, because I think that's the recommendations, and I'm willing to follow them on this subject to an extent. So Kim, what are the questions?
So a lot of questions. How long does the vaccine work or last?
Well, I think we don't know for sure, but again, like I've told you, if you go from a reactive B cell, so again, basic cellular immunology, cell-mediated immunology, your B cells react and make antibodies to start protecting you. Those are reactive B cells. They eventually turn into memory B cells, which then turn into germinal B cells that store in your bone marrow. And this data showed that there's long-term immunity. We don't know how long, but it's definitely going to be for, I think, years. We'll see. I could be wrong, but I don't see how this virus is going to be different than every other virus ever. There's going to be a variant that eventually matters, but you got to look at the whole picture of immune medicine, and what some very smart immunologists have said, that of course never get any airtime, that no, there's going to be immunity, and eventually there'll be some variants that might change it. But right now, there's not. You're going to have partial immunity against everything for a long time to come, at least for a year or 2 or 3. So no, we're done. We're done. Get your vaccine or get infected. I don't want you to get infected, but if you're one of those two, or you're a kid and you have all your your MMR and your DTaP caught up, you're in great shape. Plus, I have tons of people. I had several people in today who well, 2 of them were new, who got massively exposed. Massively exposed. Everyone in their family got it. They were in the house. They never got sick. So, thus proving that people have cross immunity already. And some of it's because they were taking vitamins. Some of it's because maybe they're caught up on their other vaccines. Some of it is they probably got corona, cold viruses before. But there is cross immunity. So there will be continual cross immunity to this virus.
Okay. As far as immunity go, or immune health, is being positive to COVID better than getting the vaccine? Is it a stronger immunity?
That's a great question. We don't know the answer to that. We know that the Pfizer and the Moderna, it's about a 95% rate. For an infection in that Marine Corps group, it was about a 90% rate. But both groups had then the other part of the immunity, or partial, where they basically they don't get symptomatic severely or really even moderately.
If you're going to get the vaccine, does Advil affect?
Nothing you do affects the vaccine in terms of over-the-counter medicines or supplements. Your immune response is going to happen unless you have a chronic immune deficiency or you happen to be on some extraordinarily potent chemotherapies that could impact your immune system. Typically, you wouldn't necessarily want to get the virus if you're undergoing chemotherapy for cancer. You'd probably want to wait, or at least wait in between a lull in your dosing.
So if you've had COVID and got the BAM infusion, do you still need the vaccine? If so, how long should you wait?
So everyone who gets, I'm remaining an outlier on this. Everybody who gets COVID minimally should wait 3 months before they get the vaccine to limit their chances of a more significant reaction. If you had more moderate or severe COVID, if you were hospitalized or came close to hospitalization, I'd wait 4 to 5 months. There's no question that you could reactivate what you've done. We've seen that a few times already when people have gotten their vaccines a little early. I absolutely do not think people should get vaccines early. If you've had it, you're already immune, and why push it? Because you can reactivate the inflammatory cascade, and that's what happens.
Okay. You've talked about the glass lungs. Is that what it's called?
Ground glass. Changes in the lungs where you get little pockets that look like ground glass in the lungs, which are basically dead lung cells with a lot of inflammatory mediators in their little balls.
Are there treatments for that? And if so, who should they see?
Yes and no, because I have to be careful. I do think there are treatments for it. I mean, one is steroids too. And again, there's no correct response for this because, the FDA offers hello to the FDA or NIH for any kind of direction on this, but again, there isn't any. So we have to do it through science and reading other literature. So I think if someone's symptomatic, you think a lot about steroids, you think about IV vitamin infusions. Oh my God, yes, they do actually help people with a lot of inflammation, especially vitamin C. Again, there's studies showing during COVID that's helpful. There's some other things potentially with derivatives of mesenchymal stem cells you could think about that are experimental. So there are things you can do to help people.
Okay.
And it's kind of on that same thing. There are things that are out there for the taste and smell. Again, they're experimental, but we've had some very good luck with 2 patients so far. We've tried some stuff on that had gone 5-6 months without taste and smell, and they've gotten it back after the intervention. So that was very exciting, and so there are things to do. But again, we have to be that's discussions between you and your physician.
Hold on, where'd I go? So this person got the vaccine and 2 weeks afterwards donated blood, and then it came back that they didn't have antibodies. Should they be worried?
No, because they're not checking the right antibodies, and the beginning of the response. So the antibodies they're checking at the blood bank have been the same the whole time, and they're not the same ones we check for quantitative SARS-2 COVID test at LabCorp, which is the right test.
So does ivermectin interfere with the COVID immune response, the vaccine?
No.
Okay, I know you already answered that, but
Routine medicines don't interfere with the immune response. Chemotherapies can interfere with their immune response.
have you heard anything about the vaccines interfering with mammograms? And if so, how long should you wait after your vaccines to get a mammo?
So the vaccines can cause inflammation anywhere in your body, and so one of the spots you can get some inflammation or swollen lymph nodes is in the axillas by the breast. So if you get a vaccine, you want to wait at least 4 to 6 weeks before you get a mammogram. And if you notice after your vaccine that your lymph nodes by your breasts up here or under the armpits are a little swollen, don't panic. It's going to go away. It's the vaccine because you're getting an immune response.
So one more. There are some people wrote in that have...
Hold on, which gets back to why getting the vaccine after you've already gotten it is always a little problematic, because you're going to have a more vigorous immune response.
So these people have a business that gives tours to 6 and less,
Okay.
mostly to school-age children. They want to know your opinion on is it safe to reopen and give tours?
So the question is, do people who have a business where they give tours to 6-year-olds and under
School-age children.
school-age children, yes, it's fine. It should be totally fine. This is stupid. I almost swore. It's stupid. We have to normalize. The kids are not the source. That's been shown now even in the United States data. They are not the source of infection in adults. They very seldom get symptomatic. And then this whole thing, like what we know now, the surfaces don't cause infection. I think the CDC said it was less than a 1 in 100,000 chance. Oh, sorry. And so what we're gonna find, I think, pretty clearly is the risk for asymptomatic transmission is gonna be minuscule. And so little kids don't get it, and if they do, they don't transmit it. And that's been shown in France, it's been shown in Europe. Open. And I think Governor Stitt has already said we don't have to wear masks. Hopefully the Oklahoma City Council will join or follow suit. The science is there. Let the masks go. Let us be normal. Let's get the suicide rate in teenagers and school-age kids down. Oh, I was unplugged right as I was ranting.
There, you're plugged back in.
So I'm ranting, but the point is, we have to normalize. Get over the fear. Get over it. You need to be normal. It's more damaging to continue the mask. And you're looking at the person who, and again for the people who are, someone said, oh, you can't have it both ways. You were wave 4 masks in the spring. Yes, because we were mitigating. You had to mitigate for 3 months. We didn't know anything. We had to mitigate for 3 months. Once we learn stuff, then you bag the mitigation strategy, because mitigation strategies are idiotic after you understand a disease process, because they don't work. Look at New York. Why are their cases going up? Because it's the weather, okay? It's the weather. It's the wind. It's the way the wind works. There's all this data on this, which I'm not going to bore you with. But the bottom line is this: normalcy trumps further mitigation steps, because we've learned about the virus. The worst case, even if you don't listen to any of the interventions I've said, which we've done remarkably successfully for patients, is what did we adopt over the last 4 to 6 weeks or 6 weeks? We routinely now, when someone got COVID, we have them go over to Dr. Craig Carson's office and get a BAM infusion right away. We've had probably 1.5 to 2 dozen patients do that. It's been like that. And the FDA even approved that, so at least I'm in the box on that one, but it wasn't available until now. So we had to do other stuff. So even if you get it right now, all you have to do is you call Dr. Craig Carson's office, Oklahoma Arthritis Center. Way to go, Dr. Carson and his whole team for putting this together. There's a place on the south side of Oklahoma City. I can't remember who that is, but they were on the news. Again, big shout out to them. The BAM infusion, wherever you are, if you get COVID, you just figure out where it is, call, they'll see you, at least in Oklahoma City, God willing, everywhere. There's plenty of those infusions. It's a synthesis of the antibody that inactivates COVID. So instead of having a vaccine and I have that antibody, you can just get it IV, boom, and with usually between 2 and 4 hours, up to 24 hours, you're gonna go like that 90 to 95% of the time. So there, we're doing an FDA approved thing finally. That's good. So that's it. So get over the fear, lose the mask as soon as the city ordinance goes away, talk to people, be nice, smile, and let's make this country get back to where it was. Good night.